So I hope you guys are enjoying the retreat so far and are starting to feel a little bit of motivation as we kind of dig deeper into what it means to have a meditation practice. And so I'm just going live on the Facebook group now. And if you're joining me on there, you can, there we go. You can go ahead and say hi as you're hopping on. And if you're joining me in the Zoom, if you don't mind keeping yourself muted, that would be fantastic. And if you have questions, you can always put them in the comments. Let's see. Okay. So day 3 today is about the question where. So taking your seat, pick a spot and create an environment. And in the first day, we looked at the big question of why and what draws you to meditation and mindfulness and what does a practice mean to you, making it very personal that way. And yesterday and day 2, we looked at when, how to set the timing, how to create a balance between when it's easiest and when it aligns most with the benefits that you're seeking. And similarly today, we're going to do more honing in on the elements of the path that make it easier to walk, of creating a habit that might be a little bit stickier, a little more sustainable. So today is answering the question where. And you can always revisit any of these questions at any time. I see a few people still joining. So if you have questions, remember you can say hi or ask any questions in the comments, and I'll take little breaks and look at them. Which is what I'm doing now. Okay, yeah. So the question where is linked, of course, to these other questions. There is a way that this kind of does build on itself a little bit. So one of the questions I like to ask is revisit your why. Think about what you are drawn to, what you are seeking, what this practice means to you. And then can you bear that in mind as you do create an environment or pick a spot, take your seat, as you find a location that aligns with some of that. So this is an opportunity to bring this what would I call it? Desire, this longing, and this change that you're seeking through creating a meditation practice into more life, into full detail. Allow yourself to kind of embellish it with more intentionality as well. So when it comes to where, there is, of course, the question of inside or outside at a basic sense. And I know I enjoyed seeing everyone's responses to the homework about when they're meditating and the timing. And some people do, I think Heather is one, like to meditate when you're outside or in the middle of a walk or something like that. And even just taking a few of those mindful breaths, that can be a lovely practice. I find for sitting really consistently over time, it can be easier to maintain when you are doing it inside, but this is up to you. I'm not going to be prescriptive about when and where you should meditate. The idea is finding what works for you. And so if you just know that I always think meditating outside is like the blissful idea of being at one with nature and in harmony with the natural world. But sometimes in actuality, it can be really distracting to be outside because there's just so much stimulation of the senses. And we're going to work a little bit with the senses in our practice, both today and tomorrow. Tomorrow is one of my favorite practices where we work with sound. And today we'll be working a little bit with sight. So thinking about maybe a quiet place where you can sit, and you want to find a spot that would align with what you're seeking and allow you to be peaceful and maybe not interrupted or stimulated too much. But you also don't want it to be like, down, up in the attic or way I don't know if you have wings in your house, but way somewhere, maybe outside in another building, where you never go, because then that makes it, of course, harder to actually show up and sit and do the practice. So bearing that in mind too, that there is this balance point here where you want it to be easy enough. You do want to create some accessibility or sort of automizing. Is that a word? Automatizing. You want to make it so that it's in a way really full of thought and intentionality, and in a way not so full of thought so that you just slide into the habit. It's an interesting kind of paradox almost. And so another question to ask yourself is, as you create an environment, are you someone who resonates more with a bare bones approach, maybe meditating in the woods, like we mentioned, or in nature somewhere, or kind of having the full kit? Is that something that you tend to do better with? Having things is helpful. Now, all you really need is your attention and your intention. You know, you don't need any actual special props. Those kinds of things won't actually make you a meditator. It is the practice, it is showing up. But having dedicated spots where you sit, or even sometimes having a couple of, a couple of special objects or something that's linked to your practice can help to make it feel special and to sort of dedicate it. So let's see, ultimately what you want to do is do whatever makes you show up and makes you want to come back tomorrow. And the nice thing about creating a meditation practice is, while it's not always easy, and sometimes when you sit, you become aware of difficult things that are arising for you, like anxiety or restlessness or grief or any of those kinds of things, or even physical discomfort, not just emotional. While I'm not going to promise that it's always easy or getting easier or something like that, typically you are creating a little more ease with whatever situation is arising, or even becoming aware of and sort of allowing and creating space for whatever's arising, both that acknowledgement and recognizing what's arising, and maybe noticing your relationship to what's arising. And so in that way, having the spot, having the physical objects, those kinds of things help to make us want to come back. But the practice itself, that really is what makes us come back to. So at least we have that going for us a little bit. And I will show you what my setup looks like. So I'm just going to lift up my computer. I sit by a window and I can either have the curtain closed or not. And I have a little altar down here, which maybe you can see. And I also am kind of surrounded by some plants and have a couple of special rocks and shells and a singing bowl and a candle. I don't always use all of those objects, but I do change them out from time to time. And I enjoy occasionally even just knowing that they're there. And so having some objects can help with three different things, I would say. One is to provide a cue and help establish the habit, more of that basic habit forming. This visual cues are said to be the strongest reminders of a habit. And the second thing is that, of course, it's providing more meaning and aligning with your objectives, your benefits that you're seeking, with the motivation for having a meditation practice. And the last thing for having some kind of gear is to make yourself more comfortable and make your practice easier to show up. So the other things I didn't show is, maybe you could see, but I have a blanket here that I don't like in the winter to have my feet resting on the bare wooden floor. So I put a blanket and kind of wrap it around my belly a little bit. And I'm sitting on a cushion. And I will say that I meditated here and there when I could or in certain circumstances for a number of years. And then when I did get my own meditation cushion, it really made me want to meditate more. And by the way, I'm not like selling any objects or, you know, I'm not doing any of that. This is just my own experience that I think having a cushion really up to my desire to meditate and my comfort level and my experience of meditation. So if you can get into that good kind of cycle, that's the way that the habit can reinforce itself. And does anyone who is tuning in have any gear or meditation cushion? I'm just curious. Let me know. And there's all kinds of things you can have. I even have my sort of outdoor meditation. I wouldn't call it a kit. It's pretty simple. But I bring a yoga block, a cork yoga block to sit on when I go to sit outside, especially because I live near the coast. So sometimes that's at the beach. The cork is kind of good in the sand. And it's just enough for me to feel like I can be in a comfortable position physically. So I'm seeing a couple of things come in. I'm going to take a moment to look at the chat in here. Let's see. Oh, what is a meditation cushion is one of the questions. Okay, yes, there are specific cushions made for meditation. And I see some people do have a little, Rosalind's mentioned a little calm area. That's exactly what I'm talking about. This kind of space that you create where you feel good. And a cushion, here is one example of a cushion. And there's many different kinds and styles. This is like a curved cushion that is buckwheat. You can probably see from the way that I'm holding it. So it kind of is more supportive, the way it flops around. And the one that I am sitting on is a more classic round cotton style meditation cushion. It doesn't have to be black or anything like that. They have all different colors. And it's more about sort of the firmness and the ability to keep your hips elevated a little bit over your knees, which tends to be just a lot more comfortable, right? So you're having I'm seeing Bernie's face, keeping your hips up. So your pelvis is getting a little tilt there. And that can really help with the physical comfort. I'll talk a little bit about posture today too, because that's often a question for people. And I see some Janina, I don't know if I'm saying your name right, has a cushion, but you haven't gotten used to using it. So you saw that I listed that I showed you that I have 2 cushions. That's because I kind of played around to see if maybe the buckwheat consistency would be better for me. And I urge you to try a couple of different cushions. Again, I'm not endorsing any products, so I myself try things a little bit as well. And let's see, so I wanted to mention that first tip, I said that it's providing a cue, a visual cue to help you establish the habit. And the book that I mentioned yesterday, Atomic Habits, where they really talk about how to build out a habit and enforce it, and even also to reduce negative habits too, he talks about these 4 steps in forming good habits. And the first step is the cue, which is like the reminder. And the next step is the craving. It's like, oh, that desire to do the behavior or to engage in the habit. And the third step is the response, which is really the behavior or the habit itself. And the fourth step is the reward. So cues are basically tiny bits of information that predict a reward. So the visual cue of having some kind of a space or an environment or an object will actually kind of become associated with the feeling that you're getting from meditation, which is hopefully all of that calm energy or that peacefulness or that clarity and balance, whatever it is that you're really seeking, and also what it is that you're finding. And also, as you go on, the cues that trigger a habit might be quite specific at first, but over time, it's not necessarily a single cue or a single trigger, but with an entire context surrounding the behavior as your meditation practice increases. And then you get sort of a layering effect of the different cues. We talked about habits and timing, and that can be a cue as well. And then these are the visual cues. So in terms of how you might use one of these cues as well, if you are using like a meditation cushion, then you might set it out before you meditate if you meditate in the morning, or you might make it somewhere that you can see it, somewhere that it is, able to talk to you and be like, hi, help me. It's time to meditate. And so I have my meditation corner actually in a corner in an area of the bedroom so that I walk by it all the time. And creating an environment, picking a spot, it can be useful to find that spot that is quiet, and you can be less disturbed. You can have some sort of a little bit of boundary or barrier, but somewhere where you're actually going by it frequently can be helpful. And even if you're traveling, despite pandemic, or you need to travel at some point, or you're in an unfamiliar environment right now, even then it can be helpful to designate a spot and to kind of associate it with meditation and those qualities and feelings you get from meditation, and to know, it helps you to settle in a different way. It's a lot about the reminder and the cue to initiate the habit, but it's also a lot about being able to settle and know, like, that's where I'm going to be able to meditate, or that's where I can relax and be comfortable, be undisturbed, be at peace in some way. And so some of the other things that can be helpful, I like having the singing bowl, which I do use as a way to kind of mark the beginning and end of my practice. There's lots of other bells and things like that. That's up to you. Obviously, all this stuff is up to you. A candle can be nice. So those are things that can, I mentioned that I have a few shells and rocks and sort of special little things. And so I'm just reading a question about the singing bowl. The singing bowl can be used lots of ways, Rosalind. You've probably heard me use it already. It's how I end all of the meditations. It's just the tone, the sound, and actually it can be used, let's see, it can be used just by like striking on it. Some people will do multiple times. It might take some time, but you can generate a tone by going around the outside. Let's see, start to hear a little bit. I like to do that. I don't know what it's called, but going around the outside of it. I like to do that as I'm settling in. It's kind of like a physical ritual kind of practice I can do that helps to kind of, it's like a tuning in, right? So I'm tuning with the sound, and I'm tuning with the intention and attention as well. So whatever it is that you might, I have I think this might be a cypress pine cone someone had given me. These kinds of things can be something that brings you joy, or something that links to your benefits from meditation, or it might be something that makes you feel safe and feel that sense of trust as well. And so there's all kinds of things, both that have meaning and then that help you to remember or remind you to do the habit, and then things that help you to feel comfortable. So meditation is not meant to be uncomfortable or a test of endurance. I lived in Japan for many years, and I did have the experience of going to a few Zen temples. I had a connection with someone who was like the sort of like personal assistant for the head of a big Zen temple in Japan. So I was able to go there for a few days and get a little bit of an inside scoop and do some Zen sitting, which isn't my typical style of meditation. But I think Zen's the only one I've seen where they really, have you ever seen how they like whack people with a stick? Maybe you don't know about that. But if you fall asleep or you kind of have a lapse in your presence and attention, they give you a little little reminder there. So we don't need to go that far. That's not what I'm advocating for here. You do want to get more comfortable. So I mentioned having your hips raised above your knee, a little tilt in your pelvis helps your body to settle in. Being aware of the chin can help a lot because people do tend, and I'm guilty of this at times too, people tend to stick their chins out or up a little bit, and that puts a lot of strain on the neck. So keeping that chin tucked a little or level, or paying attention to what's going on right here, letting your shoulders rest, and also becoming aware of your back body. So much of life, we are in our phones and our computers, and we're kind of down and in, right? So letting this be an opportunity to feel the whole body and to settle into the whole body. Yeah, I have one trick I will tell you about that, and we can practice in a moment, which is to imagine that you're in a tub of Jello. And so as you're sitting, you imagine you're in a tub of Jello, and you imagine just the slightest bit of resistance or something to kind of hold you or bounce back against on all aspects of your body. This can be a good way to start to really become aware of parts of the body that you might habitually hold in tension, or you might not even be connecting to or noticing or used to paying attention to. All right, the last thing I want to mention about body and posture is another thing you can experiment with varying is your hand position. And so I sit on a cushion with a slight raise in my pelvis, and I typically put my hands on either leg, like the upper thigh, just resting. But sometimes I like to have my palms up and feel a little more receptive or open or connecting to the world around me. Sometimes I like to have my palms in and it feels for me like I'm conserving my energy, I'm going deeper within, kind of I'm not as open to what's going on. So there's even something like that, or having your hands on your belly, or having your hands folded on each other. Those little differences can bring different qualities into your practice. So that's kind of it for what I wanted to mention about picking a location. We're going to do a short practice now, and I'll mention at the end of the practice, I am going to do one of the giveaways. I haven't been talking about that as much because there's so much to tell you all, but I'm doing a few giveaways, and I'm going to do the first, which is the journal that I have here, still sealed in some plastic, but this Path to Presence journal. And that can be a nice thing to have as gear as well, in terms of writing down any insights that arise in meditation, any experience of it, or keeping a log if you're wanting to kind of motivate yourself, having a way to integrate what's happening in your practice with other parts of your life. So I do have here in my little altar, when I pull it out, I have a journal and a pen here for when I want to write as well. I'll talk about the other giveaways tomorrow, just in the interest of time, but I have a few meditation programs in the other giveaways. So for today, we're actually going to do a little bit of an unusual practice that is going to sync with mindfulness, which I spoke about yesterday. And mindfulness is just the quality of attention and the moment-to-moment awareness of each experience as it's arising, and hopefully a moment-to-moment non-judgmental awareness. And we're going to practice using our senses and that mindfulness today by doing a practice where our eyes are open. And so I'm going to shift my body so that I'm looking at one of my plants. And if you want to turn off your camera, if you're on Zoom, go ahead and do so. And if you want to orient your body a little bit so that you can find an object to gaze on Even it doesn't need to be a special shell or plant or anything. You can gaze out the window or you can look at the wall, even, because it's going to be about the quality of our attention. So just take a moment now to settle in. I like this practice too because we're still going to anchor in the body and the breath, but we're going to leave our eyes open while we do this practice. So just take a moment, feel yourself settling in, arriving, making any adjustments that you need at any time to feel comfortable. Let's take a moment and connect in with the body. While our eyes are open, you might find a place to let them land. I would suggest looking straight ahead or down as opposed to up because that can create some neck strain. And softening your gaze as you start to become aware of yourself sitting. And you notice the sensations in the body. Bringing your attention to your sit bones, the base of your spine and your pelvis. Feel the pressure of sitting or lying. Even with your eyes open, can you connect within to whatever sensations are arising in your body? What is it in your body that tells you you're sitting or lying? What kinds of quality, what kinds of sensations are arising, and what happens when you notice them? Do they persist? Do they change in any way? Noticing the points of contact with the ground beneath you. And just gently bringing your attention to your feet, to your legs. Also bringing your attention to your hands. Noticing any sensations in your hands. Maybe even noticing the air around your hands. And become aware of your spine. Can you find that balance between uplift and restful ease? And start to become aware of the breath. Each inhale, stretching up the spine. Each exhale, resting towards the earth. So even with our eyes open, we can remain connected to the body and to the breath. And let your attention come now to wherever your gaze is resting. Just as we do with the breath and body, can you notice what's arising without any judgment or story? Just taking in the texture, the color, the visual qualities of what you're looking at now. Senses are a door to awareness What are you aware of now? It can be hard to take away the judgment and the story. So if those are arising for you, simply notice them. Noticing any responses, pleasant or unpleasant. Anytime you have noticed you're a million miles away or have hopped on another train of association or distraction, just return your attention simply, gently, kindly to your object of awareness, to the visual stimulus or the body or the breath. And let everything else start to fall away and recede. So you let your attention just rest, taking in, savoring whatever is arising. And often as we come to stillness and even let our attention rest, we become aware of how much the world is always changing. Even our sensations or thoughts or perceptions. So allow it to change. Maybe you can take refuge even in this natural law of impermanence of life. And when the mind wanders, returning your attention, becoming aware of the body and the breath. Feel yourself fully present, resting in each moment. And then when you're ready, you can not open your eyes. You can move your body if you'd like to. You can let the practice kind of go and dissolve back. Noticing how you feel. What was that like? A lot of people are surprised and have never tried doing a meditation, a sitting meditation practice with their eyes open. And I admit it's not something I regularly do, but I'm always also kind of surprised at how different it can be. So if you have any thoughts or questions, feel free to put them in there. And also noticing, again, what I mentioned at the end, how things are constantly changing. And I think that's a big part of what you're doing when you come to take your seat in meditation. And we're taking a step back, we're taking a seat, we're taking a little step out of the stream of the constant busyness. And yet things are always changing. We are always a part of the stream. So I see a couple comments that someone was wanting to close their eyes, that it was a little bit different, noticing some body discomfort more, and also appreciating the room at the same time. It can be kind of a paradox. And so the thing I love about getting feedback from you and asking comments is like, everyone's so different, and that's kind of the whole point, right? as we go through this, like the homework affirms that as well. Everyone's reasons, the timing that works out best, your experience to these meditation practices, noticing that it might be harder for some people. Someone saying they had to look at something else and looking outside was causing a glare. Wanting to close your eyes, even noticing that desire to close your eyes is an interesting thing. Someone is mentioning that it felt like it suited them better. And I have done some meditation teacher training, a couple of courses, and we always talk about offering to participants the invitation to close your eyes. And if you have any experience of trauma or anxiety or even just restlessness, sometimes closing your eyes is very challenging. And rather than requiring people to close your eyes, closing your eyes is always an invitation. And so you can always sit with your eyes open. And this is where it becomes a looser boundary with mindfulness, I think, as well. So this is kind of part of the experience of keeping your senses engaged and alert and noticing them while you are also bringing that awareness and mindfulness into the moment as well. So thank you for joining me. The homework for today, the prompt for today is actually to use that sense of sight and take a photo of either your space that you are wanting to try meditation in, or that you do currently do meditation in, or any kinds of objects. And this can be wherever, right? The world, the limits are open. If you are outside or inside, if you don't have a space yet, but you're interested in trying one, or you practice sitting even for a minute, take a photo and share it. Or you can also write about it if for any reason the photo part is difficult, you can write about it. And the prompt in the workbook is really to start to imagine what your ideal space would be like, to really bring that intentionality to creating an environment. So I think that's all I wanted to say about today. Thanks again for joining me, and I look forward to seeing everyone's words and images about what sort of a space is working. And this is all in the interest of playing around with the kind of building blocks of the practice itself, and not only the habit, but also the content of meditation, and letting them talk to each other, right? That the sort of form and function of things. All right, everyone, have a lovely day. Hope it's a peaceful, safe day for everyone. I admit that I've had to check the New York Times headlines before I come and sit down with you all every day this week, just in case there was a tragedy looming and I didn't want to be remiss in not mentioning it. So that's a weird thing. But hopefully everyone is safe and happy and healthy, and that the practice continues to work for you and showing up. Oh, I forgot about the giveaway. Jeez, I did want to do the giveaway. I have a list of people who are showing up, even in the replay and the watch party that I do every evening at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So this is for the Past Presence Retreat. This person might not be on here yet. I made a little list that I'm gonna like randomly pull from for the different giveaways. So I pulled this morning for this one, and it's actually not even a person's name, it's their Facebook name. So hopefully they'll be able to tell me, but their name is Tea with Bryce. You have won this meditation journal. So I will reach out to you, and I reach out to everyone through either email or personal messenger. So if you're wanting to reach out to me, I've already tried to reach out to you, so that connection is available. And congratulations, Tea with Rice, which actually is a great, very meditative sounding handle or name anyway. So I wish you all a lovely day, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow when we're going to talk about another very practical aspect, which is how long. We'll talk about the timing of our meditation practice. Okay, have a lovely day, and let me stop.